I'm going to record now. Jini,
Okay, you want me to repeat or
yeah, just share a little bit about, you were just in Kampala visiting with the Jesuits and some of
right?
the refugees they serve they're one of your grantees at the Global Solidarity Fund, correct?
Right, yeah,
What
yes.
was some of the feedback and how is it shaping?
Yeah, so I was actually JRS is one of our grantees in the project in Ethiopia. In Uganda, I was a JRS global workshop on livelihoods. So you basically had in Kampala JRS representatives from more than 30 countries doing different works across refugee camps across the continent of Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So it was a lot of shared learnings, very interesting. People sharing the context in Uganda, context in Colombia, context in Cameroon, very different about refugees in general. And what they were doing in this workshop specifically is the theme about focus on market systems, which ultimately means the idea is how do we find jobs for these refugees? And historically, the Jesuits, culturally, have always been focusing on education. Education is number one priority. And that's always been like this for many years. And they've done a great job. Let's not take this for granted. They've done an amazing job on that. They are recognized great. But the problem is education can take you so far, especially in the context of refugees. So as I mentioned, they had the one father who was leading that workshop of the Jesuits, who is based in Rome, doing Jesuits International, was telling me that, I went to a leadership meeting on advocacy, and the refugees were invited, which is great to have the voices of the beneficiaries be part of the discussion. And they were discussing advocacy, like JRS is working hard with UNHCR to make sure you all have a right to work in the country you are as a refugee, etc., etc. And we want to hear your experience in that. The refugees, please give you testimonials or how we're helping you. And the refugees were like, we appreciate the work of advocacy and education, but all we care about is jobs. You need to help us get jobs because that's what we need to survive. We don't want to rely on aid because that's what they're doing at the moment. We want to be economically independent. That's what we want. We appreciate the aid we're giving the refugee camps, but that doesn't help us, basically.
So what are some of your hunches? You were saying how so many religious congregations, they've done education for so long, like the Jesuits and others. What's your hunch of how they change? You were talking about the challenge at Global Solidarity Fund of the mindset change from the donor and how much they're interested in Global Solidarity Fund, probably a different mechanism. What's some of your work like at that intersection with congregations or with, yeah, either part of these?
Sorry.
Yeah. Just what's some of the mindset shifts that you see as the opportunity that you're in the middle of? Because you're at such a unique vantage point, Jini, of you manage the grants, so you manage the grantees and how they're at programming, but also the mindset of the donors. Either one you want to share a little bit about. It's so core to our work and our community here.
There's a couple of things we've noticed. Now I have this conversation with the congregations because in Ethiopia we've been working there for 3 years. In terms of shift of mind, what they've said, they started to understand that aspect of leveraging the network of other actors, not just the church. I can give you a perfect example. One thing we did, there's two things we tried to do, GSF, is utilize the network of the church. We've realized that a lot of congregations don't do that. They don't understand the value of the network and the footprint of the church. And I'm just talking about just one congregation. I had a conversation with the Salesian sisters who told me we're actually hosting an event in the April this year to invite all the Salesian sisters from Africa. Because the problem today is if you have a Salesian sisters congregation in South Sudan who wants to set up a fashion design course, vocational training, they start from scratch. But they don't know that Salesian sisters in Ethiopia have done this for 20 years. All they have to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, we want to do this fashion design. Can you give us the ropes, the foundation, how to do it? Sisters don't think like that. They start from scratch, which is a waste of time and money, basically. And people are not leveraging that. So they said that G7 actually opened up eyes to the footprint of the network of the church. And so like you should leverage the network you have. You have so much presence and nobody's using the opportunity to share experiences, best practices. Nobody's doing that. And so the Salesian sisters for the first time are doing this in April. To sit everybody around the table think, okay, asking themselves that question, what is the goal of the Salesian sisters in Africa? Is everybody doing the same thing? Do we have the same goal? Are we doing the same approaches everywhere? Of course, every country is different context, so you can't copy paste, understandably. So that's one thing that we see the sisters and the congregation starting to understand that and try to leverage that network. In terms of working with other actors, now they're starting to see the fruits of it. Because one of the things we realized, for example, in Ethiopia, we managed to get a group of congregations, different ones, like Jesuits, Salesian Sisters, the Ursuline Sisters, Mother Teresa, working as a group. Because we identified synergies between them. We identified that, for example, I'll give you a very simple scenario. a migrant woman or a very poor woman can go to Mother Teresa if she's sick. She will get access to free healthcare, which is great, and shelter. But then she goes back to the streets when she's healthy. That's the problem. So what we said, hang on a minute, you have a congregation of Salesian sisters in the same city that has vocational training. So why is it that when she's healthy, that woman, you can refer her to the sisters or the Salesian sisters or the other neighborhood? Listen, if you want to get access to training, you can go there. All we have to do is call them up. Hey, do you have a class opening next week? When's the next cohort coming in? You just register, that's it. Great. And then once the training is done, the Salesian sisters can ask the same woman, okay, do you want a job? What are you interested? What are your interests? What kind of work do you want to do? A lot of people say, I want to start my own business. Great. The Jesuits in that we know of have an entrepreneurship program where they actually accompany you how to do a business plan, how to think about if you want to start a business, what do you need? And then we can help you get access to finance as well. But the idea is this network was never built before. And these are congregations that live in the same city. They know each other, of course, but they've never actually had a project, a common project working together as a group. That's what we've been able to do. And they really see the value of this and they've been able to establish that. So we're very happy about that. Now, the next phase is how do people within the Ethiopia landscape recognize the work of the church? Because what we realized is in Ethiopia, we have similar consortium, similar group of networks of NGOs, of private sector, people doing the exact same thing, literally, but they don't talk to each other. So how do we get them to talk to the church and the church talk to them? So we try to facilitate those relationships, those discussions. A concrete example is this. I'll give you a concrete example. The congregation, that network we built over in Ethiopia, they did all this work. One of the biggest bottlenecks they had is when you help a woman, an internally displaced woman at it, you've trained everything, you've got a business plan, you've found a microfinance institution to apply for loan. The biggest bottleneck is the bank would say, where's your ID? And the internally displaced person doesn't have an ID because they displaced because of war. They didn't even know where to get an ID. It's a struggle. So they can't get access to the loan. So we actually found a facility that was funded by MasterCard Foundation who's solving that problem. And they were working with the local government, and the government's saying, if this woman comes from this church program that's very conducive and that you've selected really strong entrepreneurs, we'll give them an ID so they can get access to loans. But we had to actually promote the project. We had to approach the government, explain what the project is about, understand what they're doing. They shared, this is the bottleneck, and we found facilities. So we're telling the church, you have to go out there and find out what's going on. So the one way of doing this is we actually help them create an event, invite all stakeholders, invite NGOs, governments. The church was able to present, this is what we do, this is as a success, and there are gaps. And literally at the round table, you have people, wait a minute, we've got an initiative fixing that gap. We should connect. We have a network of people who can do that for you. Let's talk. So we try to create these movements of people working together and stop working in silos and thinking about everybody's got a role to play when it comes to improving livelihoods of these poor people. And I always say to the congregations, you cannot do this on your own. You should not put pressure and on your own. The church cannot fix poverty on their own. That's not realistic. You play your part, but other people play their part. You need to figure out how to do that. And I think there's also a lot of work we need to do in capacity building. When you talk about mindsets, it's not just overnight. You have to do a lot of leadership work and stuff like that. So it's also another thing we're trying to figure out how do we do that. But in a nutshell, I've kind of summarized the situation I've observed in Ethiopia and the slow progress we're seeing, but it takes a long time to get there.
And Jini, can you just help for people who are new to Global Solidarity Fund, a little bit of the origin story? You mentioned Gates Foundation, Hilton, and then a little bit of where you also mentioned this big pivot you're in the middle of now in terms of the mindset and the focus.
Yeah.
Give a little bit of that for some new people who are just learning about you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Global Solidarity Fund is an independent NGO. So maybe I give you the context of the story of why it was founded. So our board of directors, I would say, are founders. Global Solidarity Fund was founded in 2018. A very young organization. Before that, the founders, had already worked with the Vatican, had different relationships with the Vatican. And what happened was a discussion with Pope Francis. So Pope Francis was, as you know, travels around the world many times. He has to visit countries. And then when he goes to countries, he visits, of course, congregations. But because he's the Pope, he has to go to governments, he has to see NGOs, everybody, basically. And one of the observations he would say to some of our founders were like, I love going to travel because I get really inspired by the work of the sisters and brothers on the ground. But there's a few things I just don't understand, he would say. is I go to congregations that see the work they do to help the poor. Another day I will go to an NGO in the same country and they do the exact same thing. And I'm like, why are you guys not working with it? Why is it that the church and this NGO are not working together? They don't know each other. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing in the corner. And I just don't understand that. We could save so much time and money by people sitting together, joining forces. That's one observation he made. Second observation he said is, when I go to a congregation, now let me just take a step back. When I go to an NGO and they're presenting their case, this is what we do, this is our mission, etc. They give a very good presentation of their impact. This is how many people we touch, etc., etc. But when I go to a congregation, they don't do that. They say they help a lot of people, but when I ask them, okay, so how many people are you serving? It takes weeks to get that information. They don't have it on the spot, basically. So he's like, we need to do a better job of basically communicating the contribution of the church, because we do a lot, but we just don't know how to communicate this clearly, and people don't even know. So that's also a big problem he saw, because if you want NGOs to work with the church, they would ask that question. Okay, so what is your impact? What is your work? What does it entail? How many people, etc. So he said we need to change that. So the founders of GSF, Global Solidarity Fund, decided like, let's do that. We'll start an organization to support that work, to really create those links. First, improve the recognition of the church and the work contribution to sustainable development goals. Make the development audience understand that. We'll work on that, and we'll work on making those connections for the church. And another third thing that happened, that Pope Francis actually said very openly, I'm getting a lot, the Vatican is getting a lot of people, high net worth individuals or foundations, wanting to give millions to the church. Like, we want to give you 10 millions because you work with children. We'll know you do a great job. And the Vatican will go back. We are a church institution. We don't have grand managers. We have bishops and cardinals. We can handle small donations. But I mean, millions, I mean, we wouldn't know where to start. So he was okay with like, we, Global Solidarity Fund, would also play that part. We'll manage all these funds. That is, we'll talk to foundations who are religious, who have faith-based values. We'll tell them, you can give us the money. We'll work with the Vatican. So if you want to do work in more projects, we go to the Vatican. Okay, we have funding for this project, this country, sorry. Who are the sisters and brothers in that country you believe we should work with? Because you know better than us the strength of the church. So we play that role as well. So that's kind of the birth of Global Solidarity Fund, what happened. And the role and the mission is basically to connect the church with development actors, also private sector, all the actors in the same mission to transform the livelihoods of the poor as the poor. So just to explain to you the transition we're going through now. Initially, in the last 3 years, we were a grant maker. We had programs, we had grants. What we realized, to be more efficient in our work, we're going to take a different approach, because we have to ultimately always keep raising funds from philanthropy, which takes a lot of work, etc. And we realized there's so many opportunities of connecting those congregations, like I shared before, to actors. GSF has access to a lot of people. And we feel like we should really focus on doing that. We've built the ground in Ethiopia, and Nigeria, and Colombia, creating those networks. Now let's connect them to the right people through our network. Because we have a lot of people that come to us, multinational companies that say, we always wanted to work with the church, but we didn't have a channel, we didn't know how. Nobody could tell us the landscape, what do they do, and stuff like that. So they see GSF as the channel to, okay, you know it. So you can tell us how we can work with the church in that context. So that's what we're going to focus our energy on, is what we're going to do is like convenings, basically, in a sense, in creating those moments on specific topics, inviting people that we know, but most importantly, inviting congregations and actually get them to present what they're doing to all these actors who probably might not know what the church is doing. I'm going to give you a perfect example. I spoke to one of the companies I spoke to a company last week in Ethiopia who are working on providing digital jobs for refugees, which is a very interesting concept. And they had no idea that the church supports trained refugees. They knew the church worked with refugees, but the church actually trains refugees. And when I told them, we have 5 congregations we're working with in Ethiopia. Guess how many people they touch on a yearly basis, those 5? I don't know, Felipe, have a guess. Just 5 congregations. How many people they touch every year? I don't know, pick a number, basically.
5,000.
500,000 people. Just 5 congregations. And there are 60 congregations in Ethiopia.
Wow.
And that's just crazy. And the thing is, the congregations don't even know this. I asked them, tell me how many people you touch. And I added up the numbers. And the congregations don't say these things. They don't communicate this.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is the footprint you have. People don't know, and you're not even aware of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to communicate this to people, because then people will take you seriously. Think, wait a minute, this is a crazy network. people can tap into that. And of course, when I mean 500,000, it's in different areas. It's vocational training, it's WASH activities, it's childcare, all different programs, of course. But it's still, to be specifically 600,000 people they touch every year on all the programs they do across Ethiopia. Just 5 of them. And I talked to the cardinal, says we have 60 congregations in Ethiopia. So I mean, that's just 5. Have a guess. I don't even know how many 60, but I said, guys, figure out how many people we touch with 60, please. Just figure it out. Because that's something that people want to know. So, and also what's interesting is these congregations have footprint all over the continent. So it's not just Ethiopia. So even if you take into account all the footprint on the continent, we have companies like Unilever who's like, would love to work with the church because they have footprint everywhere. We have footprint everywhere. How can we work together to really scale and replicate what we do together? Because these are multinational networks that could work together. So that's our vision of GSF. How do we create those multinational networks to work together, so to speak, to really impact as many people as possible? But I've talked a lot. But